Welcome to the Echoes of Ihsan podcast. Today we're diving deep into something that might seem a little dry at first, but trust me, it's really fascinating. We're going to be talking about Islamic inheritance law,
Oh, yeah.
and our main source for this is going to be Sahih Muslim Book 11, The Rules of Inheritance, which is a collection of hadiths.
Right.
And for anyone who might not be familiar with what a hadith is, these are essentially records of the Prophet Muhammad's sayings and actions.
Exactly. And Sahih Muslim is considered one of the most trusted collections of hadiths out there. So it really gives us a valuable window into how the earliest Muslims understood and applied Islamic principles,
Yeah, that makes sense. And when you think about inheritance laws, they're not just about, dividing up possessions after someone passes away.
Mhm.
They actually tell us a lot about a society's values and priorities and how they view things like fairness and responsibility.
That's a great point. You're absolutely right. Islamic inheritance law in particular is known for its really detailed structure and its emphasis on fairness, ensuring the well-being of all the family members and the community as a whole.
Okay, so let's jump right in. One of the first things that really stood out to me in Sahih Muslim was how it distinguishes between Muslims and non-Muslims when it comes to inheritance.
Okay.
So Hadith 3928 states pretty clearly that a Muslim cannot inherit from a non-Muslim and a non-Muslim cannot inherit from a Muslim. So why this separation?
Well, it's important to remember the historical context. This hadith reflects the social and legal realities of the time back then. So this distinction, it probably served to emphasize the separate legal identities of Muslim and non-Muslim communities.
That makes sense. It does make you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Especially in today's world, where families are often made up of people from different faiths.
Absolutely. It raises some really interesting questions about how these principles are interpreted and applied today in our more modern, diverse contexts.
Definitely food for thought. Now, getting into the details of Islamic inheritance law, I noticed this phrase that kept popping up in several hadiths.
Okay.
Hadiths 3929, 3939, and 3931 to be exact. And it goes, give the shares to those who are entitled to them, and what remains over goes to the nearest male heir. Can you break that down for us?
Yeah, this is a key phrase because it introduces the concept of al-faraid, which means those with fixed shares in Islamic inheritance.
Okay.
So basically, Islamic law lays out very specific portions of the inheritance that go to particular relatives based on their relationship to the person who died.
So it's not just a free-for-all. It's very structured.
Exactly. It's a very structured system. And quite sophisticated, actually, considering it predates a lot of modern legal systems.
Yeah.
If you think about it, a son gets twice the share of a daughter, a wife receives a specific portion, and so on. And this system ensures a just and fair distribution of wealth according to, a framework that's considered divinely ordained.
Wow. It's amazing how much thought and detail went into creating this system centuries ago. So we've got these fixed shares for certain family members. But then Sahih Muslim throws us a bit of a curveball with this concept of kalala.
Right.
What's that all about?
Kalala is a very specific scenario that actually caused quite a bit of discussion and debate among the early Muslims.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Hadiths 3932 through 3936 describe how the Prophet was asked about inheritance for someone who dies without any direct heirs. So no parents, no children.
Oh, wow.
And this seemingly simple question actually revealed a gap in the existing understanding of inheritance law at that time.
Interesting. And this is where things get really interesting because the Prophet didn't have an answer right away. He waited for divine revelation, which came in the form of Quran 4.177. Can you imagine waiting for divine guidance on such an important matter?
It really underscores the importance of seeking God's guidance in legal matters, even for someone as wise and knowledgeable as the Prophet. He didn't just rely on his own judgment, but waited for that divine instruction. Yeah.
So even the Prophet had to wait for answers sometimes. I can only imagine how Jabir the companion who asked the question must have felt waiting for that revelation to come down.
Yeah, it must have been quite a wait. And the story doesn't end there. Hadiths 3937 and 3938 tell us that Umar, a very prominent companion of the Prophet and a future caliph, was actually so puzzled by this whole concept of kala that he kept asking the Prophet about it repeatedly.
Wow, even Umar.
Even Umar, known for his wisdom and understanding, found this challenging.
That really shows you how complex this concept was.
Exactly. The fact that the Prophet had to actually reassure Umar by referring to that revealed verse shows that interpreting and applying Islamic law wasn't always, a straightforward black and white matter. It was an ongoing process.
So it wasn't just a one-time revelation and everyone instantly understood? It involved discussion debate and a real process of understanding.
Exactly. And these hadiths give us such a fascinating glimpse into that dynamic process of legal scholarship in early Islam. You see, new situations would challenge existing understandings, and this would lead to further clarification and interpretation. It really shows that it's a living tradition, constantly evolving to address these new challenges.
And speaking of that revelation, Hadith 3939 through 3943 reveal something pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
The very last verse revealed in the Quran, 4.177, was the one addressing this issue of Kalala.
That's right.
Wow.
It really emphasizes just how significant this issue is in Islamic law. It wasn't just a minor detail, it was actually a crucial part of the Quran's legal framework, and it came towards the very end of the revelation.
So it was a big deal that needed direct divine clarification.
Absolutely. Imagine that the final piece of the puzzle, clarifying a complex matter that had puzzled even the Prophet's closest companions. That really solidifies the importance of this concept within Islamic inheritance law.
So we've gone from this broad distinction between Muslims and non-Muslims in inheritance to the very specific details of Kalala. It's fascinating how this system balances these wide principles with such specific rules for different situations.
It really shows the depth and the comprehensiveness of Islamic jurisprudence.
Hmm.
It's not just about abstract ideas, it's about providing very practical guidance for real-life situations, no matter how complex they might be.
And speaking of real-life situations, let's shift gears a bit and talk about debt.
Okay.
Hadiths 3944 through 3948
Mhm.
give us some thought-provoking insight into how debt and inheritance were dealt with in early Islam.
Right. Well, this is where we see this interesting evolution of social responsibility within that early Muslim community. Initially, the Prophet wouldn't perform funeral prayers for those who died in debt unless their assets could cover it.
Wow. So even funeral prayers were affected by debt. That's
Yeah.
a powerful statement about financial responsibility.
It really highlights how seriously Islam views financial obligations. But then, as the Muslim community gained strength and resources, after some key victories, the Prophet's approach changed. He declared that he would personally take on the debts of believers who passed away, allowing their property to go to their heirs without that burden.
Wow. So from a practical standpoint, that protected the heirs from inheriting a potentially huge financial burden.
Yeah.
But it's also such a compassionate act of community support.
Exactly. It shows a developing social consciousness within that Muslim community. As they became more established and prosperous, they took on this responsibility of easing the burden of debt, ensuring the dignity of the deceased and the well-being of their heirs.
It's really a testament to the values of compassion, community support, and economic justice, which are at the core of Islamic teachings.
Absolutely. This shift exemplifies how spiritual principles and social and economic considerations are all interwoven in Islam. The Islamic approach to inheritance isn't just about the legal transfer of wealth, it's about ensuring fairness, compassion, and social responsibility throughout the entire process.
And this is just a small glimpse into the fascinating complexities and nuances of Islamic inheritance law.
We've barely scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore and unpack within this system.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It's remarkable how these principles from so long ago still resonate even today, They've even influenced legal systems all over the world.
Yeah, it really shows the lasting impact of Islamic legal thought. It's not just something from the past. It's a system that has shaped and continues to shape legal frameworks in so many different cultures.
Exactly. And it makes us think about, the bigger implications of this whole inheritance system. What does it tell us about the core values and the priorities of Islam? What makes it so enduring and so influential?
That's a great question. I think one of the key takeaways is this emphasis on justice and fairness that we see throughout the whole system. I completely agree. The way it meticulously defines how inheritance is distributed aims to make sure that every eligible relative receives their proper share. And this in turn helps to, minimize any disputes and foster harmony within families. It's not about just leaving everything to the eldest son or favoring one child over another.
Right. It's about having a balanced and equitable distribution of wealth that acknowledges the different levels of kinship and responsibility within a family structure.
And this focus on fairness, it goes beyond just the immediate family too, right?
Yeah.
Islamic inheritance law also recognizes the rights of extended family members, making sure that a wider circle of relatives benefits from the deceased's estate.
It's like a built-in safety net woven into the fabric of society. It ensures that individuals are supported not just by their immediate family, but also by a broader network of relatives.
Precisely. And this system, it doesn't just provide financial security, it actually cultivates a strong sense of responsibility within the community as a whole. It encourages individuals to actively care for their relatives and, contribute to their overall well-being.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that we are all connected. We have obligations to each other that go beyond our immediate circle.
Exactly. And this concept of interconnectedness is further reinforced by, the prophet's decision to take on those debts of deceased believers.
Right. It's such a powerful example of collective responsibility and compassion. The community steps in to lift that burden from the heirs, making sure that deceased's financial obligations are met with respect and dignity. It really shows the social conscience that's at the heart of Islamic teachings.
It really is a beautiful demonstration of those teachings. It shows how the principles of Islam translate into actions that uplift and support individuals and families.
So Islamic inheritance law isn't just about dry rules and legalities.
Mm.
It reflects a deeply ethical and compassionate worldview. It's about justice, fairness, and fostering a sense of care and responsibility within the community.
And it's fascinating how these principles, which are rooted in centuries-old traditions, still resonate so strongly with our concerns today about things like social justice and economic inequality. That emphasis on equitable distribution, on caring for the vulnerable, and on shared responsibility. These are all themes that spark important conversations about wealth distribution and social welfare all around the world.
It makes you wonder how these time-tested principles could be applied or adapted to the challenges we face today.
It's a thought-provoking question for sure. Maybe by studying these ancient systems, we can gain some new insights into how we can create more just and equitable societies in our modern world. After all, sometimes wisdom lies in looking back as we move forward.
And that's what makes these deep dives so rewarding. We're not just exploring the past for the sake of it. We're uncovering wisdom that can shed light on our present and maybe even inspire us to create a better future. It's about connecting with the legacy that has shaped our world and seeing how it can help us navigate the complexities of life today.
Well said. It's about recognizing that the past isn't just behind us. It's a foundation on which we can build a more just and compassionate future.
Speaking of journeys, our exploration of Islamic inheritance law has taken us to some really interesting places. We've looked at the intricacies of these fixed shares we grappled with, Kalala, and we witnessed how social responsibility evolved within that early Muslim community. And we've seen how Islamic legal thought balances meticulous details with these profound ethical principles, creating a system that is both practical and moral.
And like any good deep dive, we've really only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore and understand within this vast and intricate system.
But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a question, something to think about as we continue exploring this topic.
I'm sure they've already been reflecting on these fascinating ideas as we've been talking.
We've seen how Islamic inheritance law addresses the distribution of wealth within families and communities, making sure there's fairness and responsibility as assets are transferred from one generation to the next. But what about the idea of inheritance on a much broader scale? What do we as individuals and as a society inherit from previous generations? What does that legacy look like and what responsibilities come with it?
That's a really profound question. It challenges us to think beyond just the material things we inherit and to consider the intellectual, cultural, and spiritual treasures that have been passed down to us. It's about reflecting on the knowledge, the values, the traditions that we've inherited from those who came before us. It's like we're standing on the shoulders of giants.
It's about considering what we've gained from their struggles, their triumphs, their insights, and even their mistakes. What wisdom have we inherited? What lessons have we learned? And how can we preserve and cultivate these treasures for future generations? What is our responsibility as inheritors of this incredible legacy?
It's a humbling thought, isn't it? To realize that we are all part of this long chain of transmission stretching back through time, connecting us to countless individuals whose lives and efforts have shaped the world we live in today.
It's a powerful realization that connects us not just to our ancestors, but to everyone living today and to the generations yet to come. It highlights the interconnectedness of all human experience, reminding us that we are all part of a larger story, a story that goes beyond individual lives and encompasses the collective journey of all humanity.
And it emphasizes how important it is to understand and appreciate those legacies that have shaped our world, the ideas, the innovations, the struggles, and the sacrifices that have paved the way for where we are today.
It invites us to think about our own role in shaping the future, to consider what we will pass on to the next generation. What will our contribution to this ongoing chain of transmission be?
It really is. It's almost like we're all, beneficiaries of this vast inheritance, a legacy that goes way beyond just material possessions.
It's a legacy that includes all the wisdom, knowledge, and experiences of humanity. It's like a tapestry woven from countless lives and stories.
And just like those heirs in Islamic inheritance law, we have this responsibility to manage this inheritance wisely, to approach it with care and, recognize its value and potential.
We have a duty to nurture it, to help it grow and evolve, and to pass it on to future generations in a way that honors its significance and makes sure it keeps impacting the world.
It's humbling, isn't it, to realize that we're all part of this grand chain stretching back through time, connecting us to the very beginnings of human civilization.
It's a really profound realization that links us not only to our ancestors, but to everyone alive today, and to those who haven't even been born yet. It highlights how interconnected human experience really is, reminding us that we're all part of a bigger story, one that goes beyond individual lives and covers the entire journey of humanity.
And it really underscores the importance of understanding and appreciating those legacies that have shaped our world. The traditions, the beliefs, the innovations, and the sacrifices that have brought us to this point in time. It's about recognizing the shoulders we're standing on and acknowledging what we owe to those who came before us.
Legacies like the Islamic legal tradition, with its strong emphasis on justice, fairness, and social responsibility, give us such valuable insight into how we can create societies that are more equitable and compassionate societies that reflect the best of human values.
These principles that are enshrined in texts like Sahih Muslim challenge us to think beyond just our own needs and consider the well-being of our communities and the world as a whole. They invite us to broaden our circle of concern and really embrace a more complete understanding of our place in the world.
It's a call to action, isn't it? To go beyond just passively inheriting the past and to actively engage with it, to learn from it, to examine it critically, and to build on it in ways that create a better future.
It's about becoming responsible stewards of the knowledge, values, and traditions that have been passed down to us. It's realizing that we don't just need to preserve them, but cultivate them and allow them to flourish and adapt to the changing world around us.
It's about making sure that these treasures, these gems of human wisdom and experience, continue to enrich and inspire humanity for generations to come.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into Islamic inheritance law, let's hold on to this sense of responsibility, this commitment to preserving and nurturing our collective inheritance. This understanding that we're all heirs to a legacy that extends far beyond material possessions.
Let's strive to be worthy inheritors of the wisdom, knowledge, and compassion that have been passed down to us through the ages.
And let's dedicate ourselves to creating a world where these principles we've talked about today, principles of justice, fairness, and social responsibility, aren't just nice ideas, but are actually lived out, woven into the very fabric of our societies.
A world where the legacy of Sahih Muslim and the teachings of Islam continue to inspire us to build a better future for everyone. A future where the inherent dignity and worth of every single human being is recognized and upheld.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery. May your own explorations of Islamic thought be filled with insight, inspiration, and a renewed dedication to building a more just and compassionate world.
And may we all be guided by the timeless wisdom of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the profound teachings of Islam as we navigate the complexities of our time and strive to create a world that reflects the very best that humanity has to offer.
Until next time, may peace and blessings be upon you all.